everyone. Welcome to my latest episode of Consider This with Scott Mantz. I got a great episode for you today. So I've always said that 1999 is my favorite year ever for movies. Every weekend throughout that year, one awesome movie after another. Election, Eyes Wide Shut, American Beauty, The Sixth Sense, The Insider, Three Kings, Being John Malkovich, and a movie that has since become an animated classic. And it was great when it came out on August 6th, 1999. Of course, that is The Iron Giant. That movie, animated feature, brilliant, wonderful, heartfelt film, but it didn't do well at the box office. It came out the same weekend as The Sixth Sense and Mystery Men. So it got kind of lost, but the appreciation is right here on Consider This with Scott Mantz. I got to interview Eli Marienthal, who voices Hogarth and two of the producers. So enjoy this conversation about the making of The Iron Giant. And joining us for this great conversation on The Iron Giant, I'm very excited to welcome producers Allison Abbate Des McAnuff and actor, voiceover artist Eli Marienthal, who voices Hogarth. Thank you all so much for joining us for this wonderful conversation about this amazing movie. First question for you, and I want to start with Eli on this, is what is your take on how The Iron Giant has not only held up, but is actually even better than it ever was since it first came out 25 years ago?
Thank you. So happy to be here. Thanks for the great question. You know, the themes that The Iron Giant addresses are truly timeless. Nonviolence, the choice that we have, our destiny, what it means to have a soul. I mean, these are the fundamental questions of all times. And I think as people have continued to watch the movie and fall in love with its characters, the richness of the inquiry into those themes has only continued to take root.
Hey, Des, how about you? What is your take for why this movie has really not only held up, but it's gotten even more popular over these years?
Um, I think it has to do with the film's pertinence. And I think Eli said it beautifully. I think the themes in Iron Giant resonate today just as powerfully, or perhaps more so than 25 years ago. And just having watched it recently, one can't help but think about the return of the Cold War, for example, in these rather frightening, chillingly frightening times. Uh, you know, I think a lot of AI and our increasing kind of obsession with that and the dangers of AI being weaponized.
Mhm.
Mortality, I think one of the most moving, scenes in the movie is the Iron Giant when he discovers the death of the deer, and this moment where he's trying to contemplate the end of existence for another creature. I think it's an astonishingly good movie, and I think you're right. I think its impact seems to get amplified as the years go by.
So Alice, I want to ask, like, how did this even come about? How did it come for you all to take Ted Hughes' 1968 book, The Iron Man, not to be confused with Iron Man, and
Mhm.
to turn it into an animated feature?
Well, you might be able to talk more about before Brad and I got there, but I know that it was brought to Warner Brothers by you guys and Pete Townsend as a sort of different project, a musical project. And when Brad was looking at what was in the kind of coffers there to kind of work on, he was inspired by the story and the concept. And I had just finished Space Jam at that point. So it just felt like he had a take. He had a way of modernizing it, but preserving how special the theme was and how, the energy and the spirit of it. And I think that it just seemed like it was like the perfect storm of great great IP, great, beautiful, beautiful poetic literature, and Brad's very unique perspective and point of view. And it just felt like it was the right time. We didn't realize, I think, at the time how timely it was going to be, but I get a lot of, working in animation, it's like it has to be fun for kids and smart for adults, and that's sort of the holy grail. It's the North Star that everyone's searching for, and I think this movie just ticked the box. It had weight and depth for all ages, but it wasn't a bummer to watch. It depicted such a heartwarming connection, and I think even Ted Hughes, before he passed away, had read the script, and even he was impressed in how well Brad was able to capture the essence of what he was really trying to say in the Iron Man. So I don't know, Des, if there was anything that happened before that because Pete Townsend, and that seems like a
all right, yeah. Let's back up a second here, Des. Pete Townsend, that's the Who's Pete Townsend. And I remember way back in the day, before the movie opened, hearing, oh, this was almost a musical. So how did you pivot, Des, from Pete Townsend's vision, your vision as a musical, to something that was more just of a straightforward narrative?
First of all, I want to say I got to kind of pilot this project until luckily Brad looked at the artwork that we were, developing on the walls at Warner Brothers, and fell in love with the concept and came aboard. And Allison, who I want to say did the real heavy lifting when it came to producing this film. And I went from being a pilot to being a sort of passenger / advisor. It was a fabulous job because I could come in, I was doing another film, and I could, kind of come in and, add this and that. But she was the one really in the trenches with Brad. God bless her for that. Brad is a caricaturist, and that's his universe as a director of animation, and that's his vision. And I remember Pete and I were just talking about this recently when Brad described to us that he just wasn't interested in characters singing. He just had no interest, no appetite for it, none. And so it wasn't like a long discussion. We realized that the artist that was going to basically helm the project after we developed it, or did the initial development, was not going to go in that direction. And Pete quite graciously just embraced that. And it was, I think, a very wise move. We had contributed, I think, quite a bit to the project. For example, the whole idea of combining cell animation and computer graphics and in fact, initially there's a section in the novel where the Iron Man takes on a space dragon, and we even fantasized about that possibly being claymation, and then Brad came along with Allison, and they made it real. They made it and Brad understood so many things, I think, about just storytelling. The idea of making Annie a single mother just gave a kind of an emotional spine. And obviously with Eli and Jennifer and Eli have this bond in the movie that just breaks your heart. I can't watch it now without tearing up. I can't watch it, and that's really a great compliment to the filmmakers, I think.
I got to tell you, so, I remember I watched it a bunch of times, and when it came out in the years that followed, and then I just, of course, preparing for this conversation, rewatched it again. I swear, I got to tell you, my mind was blown at the emotional impact that it had on me, especially at the end. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Is that really bringing me to tears? But Eli, like, what's your earliest memory of your involvement with the Iron Giant? How did that come about? And what were the first sort of conversations that you had with Allison and with Brad?
I think my audition for the role happened like in Glendale at like 6:30 on a Thursday, and it was like, are we really gonna go to Glendale? No, come on. And Allison, I think we met at that first reading, didn't
With your
we?
wonderful mother, who
With my wonderful mother, who I'm traveling with today. As I
please give
do.
her my love.
Shout out
She's
Penny.
wonderful.
And as I recall, it felt right from the very beginning. That's
Yes.
how I remember it. It has been now 27 years,
Yeah.
and I was a little boy at the time, and don't have the clear chronology, but the feeling of it was that there was an instant bond. I felt so much warmth from Brad and so much warmth from Allison, and an immediate resonance with the project. And I feel like Hogarth and I started growing towards each other pretty much immediately. I mean, I remember seeing the artwork even between that first meeting, and then some weeks or maybe it was months later. And I thought, this boy looks more like me, and I feel more like him. And we've just kind of been on that trajectory. I feel, he stays timeless, and I keep getting older, but in some really important ways. It's like he got inside of me in the same way I got inside of him, and we've been dancing with each other ever since.
I love that.
So Allison, what made Eli the perfect Hogarth? What was your take on that audition that made you go, well, we found our Hogarth?
Oh, I remember it like it was yesterday, and I feel like it was you're right, it was a feeling. We live with these characters so much prior to casting, but you're right, the character doesn't really come together until you kind of combine. And you, at, I don't know, 10 years old, you had the depths, you're just such a smart, soulful child, but also extremely articulate. I mean, you have to carry the heavy lifting of the dialogue in the movie. So, I've done other movies with children, and it's really been you've really been my North Star of like how to nail it, because you've got to find an actor who has the depths even at a very young age, as well as the facility with your instrument to be able to, that coffee scene, like that's a mouthful. Like you have to sell the pathos, you have to sell the comedy, the scene at the table, like understanding timing. And also you have a great voice, and I love hearing it again now, even as a man. Like you just had a voice that you could listen to all day long. So it was, and I agree with you. I think that you informed the character informed you, and it was one of those perfect experiences when you just know that your casting is like, we're done here. We found Hogarth. And then, Marcy was such a great casting agent, and she was so just so helpful at creating that space where we could really get to know you, even in a short audition in Glendale.
All right, Des, how about you? What is your
I'm sorry. I just want to say thank you
Oh.
so much, Allison.
Absolutely.
It's so nice to see you. Thank you so much for that reflection. It's like so nice to get to see it from the other side after all these years, because I have my memory of it, and it's such a pleasure to get the reflection back.
Great.
I'm really, really grateful.
Oh, great.
That's what is your take when you really started to see or hear Eli as Hogarth, especially when you started to get some footage together that included the other actors, which we'll get to in a second. Like, what really, in your opinion, just made Eli the perfect Hogarth?
I think Allison just said a mouthful there, and I agree with everything she said. I mean, it truly is a virtuosic performance, and I think one of the things that Eli brought to Hogarth is a kind of emotional freedom that is absolutely recognizable. He personifies the bright, curious, lonely boy who has a squirrel as a best friend and trades up for a 100-foot Iron Man. He's just a beautifully cast. And I got to say, in response to what Eli just said, you know, I worked a lot with kids too over the years, and I've come to recognize that a working experience for a 10-year-old can have a profound, you know, impression, make a profound impression on a child. And just coincidentally, and this is just a sentence, but I thought of you, Eli, when this happened. I went to a play called Job on Broadway about a week ago, and I got a letter about 2 days later from the director, Michael. And he said, I saw that you were at Job and want to remind you that I was the child actor in your Broadway version of Dracula.
Oh,
And I used to sit in the balcony and watch you work and watch the magical transitions that you created. And you inspired me to enter the profession of directing. And the great thing is, I had just said to a friend of mine at dinner the night before, I had just talked about this production and the brilliance of this director who's still got to be in his 20s. And you know, I was thinking about, when I was watching the film, which I did, I was thinking about, Eli, the impression, well, you made on all of us, but the impression that this experience must have had on you.
Wow. Okay. So
Definitely. What a
Eli,
beautiful story. Thank you for sharing, Des.
Eli, what was it like to work with Brad Bird? This is his first feature as a director, and you know, you're 10 years old at the time. Like, what made him a great director to you? One that was really helpful in informing your approach to playing Hogarth.
Well, I felt Brad's virtuosity, even if I couldn't name it. And I felt safe in his hands.
Mhm.
I felt completely comfortable. He drew me out past whatever reluctance to find my voice or be in my body I might have had. He made the time in the studio pleasurable, fun, interesting. Um, he got me in motion. He really got me in motion. He really gave me the space. You know, I needed to be out of breath. Go, run outside, do laps around the Warner Brothers lot, run in here. We'll have the mic ready to go. As soon as you come in, just run up to the mic and start saying your lines. Or here's a, you know, I think it was the first and maybe the last Twinkie I've ever eaten in my life was to actually film that scene or to record that scene. And in all of those ways, whether it was actually to get the most authentic sound, or I think sometimes um, just to make it feel easeful.
Mhm.
And you know, as a young person, what Des is saying, it's true. You can feel, even if you can't name the qualities of the adults that you're working with. You can feel when you're in good hands. You can feel when you're part of a project that is meaningful and has heart in it. And I just have always felt that Brad is a person of so much heart, and you know, and he made this the whole, it was such a generous invitation to be part of a creative process. You know, it wasn't just, here's your lines, step up to the thing, do the lines, no, do it like that. And it was responsive. He had a lot of notes. We did a lot of takes, but I never felt rushed. I never felt like he was frustrated. I never felt, I mean, who knows what was happening behind the soundboard, but I never felt it. I felt encouraged to be in a free flowing creative practice. And I think that's what really comes through.
Yeah, I think that you nailed it. I mean, Brad is an amazing director, and it is that dynamic between he and his actors, he and the animators. Like he knows how to tap into the character and help you to get there. So especially he's a big kid. So again, I remember you guys running around and him being in there, and it was I think that he knew the character so well, and I think his joy is to kind of to work with actors. So no, it was, I think he had a blast.
Allison, I want to ask about, so at that time, you know, 98, 99, making the film when the movie opened. So Jennifer Aniston, you know, she's like, I don't know, 6, 7 seasons into Friends. top of her game. She also did the movie Office Space, which came out earlier in 1999.
Mhm.
That's another great movie in 99. What made her perfect for the role? Like, did you talk to other actors before Jennifer Aniston? You know, like what made her just so perfect as
Yeah.
Hogarth's mother?
I mean, I think we did talk about other actors. I think Brad really wanted a mom that didn't feel like the mom you see in every other animated movie. So the fact that she was young, that that she was notable in and had that wonderfully recognizable voice as a young woman. And so sort of the tragedy of having lost a spouse so young is a reality. And so and I think making her, you know, it kind of also spoke to the relationship with her child and how bonded they would be through their life, but also through their grief. And again, even though I don't think I think one of the lovely things about the movie is that we're not heavy-handed about the loss of the father, like where you might often get in an animated movie. I think having such a youthful um mother figure and the way that she performed it, I think she made it her own. I think she had fun with it. And I love the little romance with Harry Connick Jr. I thought was great. So again, she brought so much that I think it was just not a cookie cutter mom role. And I think she saw that as such and was, you know, excited to be part of the project.
Yeah, you know, the other thing too is like and this is the great thing about watching a movie again so many years later, you know, you see things differently, you certainly hear things differently.
Mhm.
And you know, at that time in 99, you know, so this is before Fast and Furious, you know, really made Vin Diesel like a
Yeah.
superstar. Um, how how did you approach like what the Iron Giant was going to sound like? Before you settled on not just Vin, but you know, the what you were going to do with Vin's voice to make him sound like an Iron Giant.
Yeah, I mean, we worked a lot on the giant, and again, to a point that Des made earlier, like the giant was CG, early CG, and I think Brad, you know, he always said we wanted to make him look like he was from a different planet, but not from a different movie. So the hoops that we went through to make him integrate perfectly into a hand-drawn 2D animated movie, was ahead of its time in and of itself. But I do think that Brad is also extremely particular about sound design and knows exactly what he wants, knows exactly how to get it. And we played a lot with the kinds of way that we would work with the sound and the sound design for the giant. And then Vin, you know, we had seen him in Saving Private Ryan, and he wasn't a big movie star at that point, but
Right.
someone on our staff kind of knew him, and so they were like, we got this guy. So it was like a weird, wonderful kind of like, you mean Jennison's friend is Vin Diesel, who was in that? Like, it was like a weird kind of like serendipity of, and then he was just so perfect and he was so lovely. And he really broke right when the movie was kind of coming out. So he was just so lovely about marketing for our movie and doing so much at that time, which I think he can convey a lot with very few words, as we have seen in I Am Groot. So I feel like we kind of set the table
Yeah.
for he was just like I think a really, again, perfect timing and a great kind of amalgam. But you know, Brad had in his head how he wanted that voice to sound, and it was, you know, it's all the pieces come together when you finally have it all in line. And I think he was really happy with it.
So Eli,
So can I just add, you know, I think the film serves up a kind of profound truthfulness in the performances.
Mhm.
Jennifer doesn't seem to be acting. You know,
Mm.
she's bringing her soul to it. And if you look at Jennifer's role today in the news, she's very much a proponent for women, mothers, and she does it with such charm and conviction. And that's the same thing she brings, you know, to her performance. There's a kind of uh, wisdom that she brings, and I think that's true with the giant as well. There's a spectacular, there's a kind of almost innocence there that's clearly coming from not just the animation but the performer. And I know you're going to get into Harry Connick Jr., but I think it was extraordinary casting because, as we know, Harry Connick Jr. is a very accomplished musician. So he truly is an artist, and he's not just faking it.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
he has the soul of an artist,
Mhm.
and that I think comes through in spades in the movie. Again, he's just wonderfully cast, and I happened to be there, you know, as he was laying down tracks, and I was just amazed at again, just his instinct
Mhm.
at playing the part. And obviously, we've already established this with Eli. I mean, from the time he enters the film, you feel like there's an authenticity to the
Yes.
work and a truth. And that's what, however cynical we all get, ultimately that's what we respond to.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask Eli, like, I'm assuming when you recorded your voiceover that it was just you and Brad, that the other actors were not with you. So I'm wondering what it was like when you finally got to meet Jennifer and Harry and Vin, you know, and the rest of the cast. Maybe it was at the premiere. When was it?
I had one session with Jennifer.
Yeah.
Although, no offense, I think I was like, can I go back to just playing with Brad? My friend was like kind of a big deal, and then like her time, and I was like, I like it when it's like me and Brad playing around the room. I have not yet gotten to meet Harry, but who knows? And I met Vin. They put us together for the press junket.
Press junket,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And man, that guy's fun. I've been
Yeah.
trying to hang out with that guy again ever since. It's been like 25 years. I'm like, bro, come on. Because I mean, he was like that. And you know, I think we were playing it up, but we had a natural affinity in that
Yes.
same way. He was like, I'll be the warm giant,
Hmm.
you.
That's who
And,
he is as a
and he
person.
was.
So
He just swooped me right up, and I've never had so much fun doing interviews as I did that couple of days that I got to spend with Vin.
that's great.
So, last question is just really, here we are. We're talking about Iron Giant for this screening series. 1999, the year that changed cinema. I mean, it is mind-boggling how many great movies. And you know, even the New York Times just recently did a Sunday Times piece on the movies of 1999, including the Iron Giant. So, Allison, how proud are you that Iron Giant is so revered, so beloved, and just really just at the top of when people talk about the great movies of 99?
I am beyond proud and have been, you know, when the movie came out, it was the same weekend as Sixth Sense. And so I joked earlier that box office wise, it was a challenge for the studio and for us. But I have never gotten more hugs in my life for a movie than I have gotten for Iron Giant. Even from the minute it came out, people felt like it was a gift and they were grateful for the gift. And the fact that it has been a gift that keeps on giving has just been such a wonderful, wonderful thing for me as a filmmaker. As I said, it's set the table for everything I have done since. And you know, so I am so proud and I am so grateful
All right,
to
Des,
it.
what's your take, Des?
Well, you know, it was such an unlikely journey that I think it's a miracle. Pete had been working on an album, The Iron Giant, and I met Ted, and we talked about this, and I said to Pete, you know, I don't think this is a theater piece, Pete. I think this is an animated feature. Now, the odds of getting an animated feature made are probably 10,000 to 1, maybe not even that. And Ted was particularly excited about this idea, and I even had the gall to suggest, well, maybe we would set it, you know, on the East Coast of the United States, like in Maine, as opposed to, you know, Cornwall and Devon, you know, where Ted lived. And he was so supportive. I mean, and he, as Allison said, he loved the script, but the odds were so remote. And I went to Bruce Berman first, who was running Warner Brothers, and then eventually worked with Billy Gerber, who came along and inherited that particular role. But it was really a Bob Daly and Terry Semel who were
Yep,
the
Warner Brothers.
big bosses, and they were walked by and they saw the artwork and they heard about Pete's involvement, and they really pushed it along. And the really lucky break in all of this is that Brad fell in love with it, because Brad, as Allison said, he had a take on it that really he could bring it to thousands of people. And I'll just use one ingenious example from the screenplay that he and Tim really carved out. And you know, it's the sequence with the train and you know the giant's appetite for metal, and that fabulous scene where he's very fastidiously straightening the tracks and gets smashed. And then that leads, of course, to the fact that you come to understand that his body can reassemble. And that, in a turn, sets up that brilliant emotional ending.
Yeah.
It was just such fabulous filmmaking. And I couldn't be, I think it's got to be one of the very top family films of all time, not just 1999. Yeah.
All right. So Eli, take us out. How proud are you to be part of this wonderful movie, The Iron Giant?
Well, you know, I had the pleasure of introducing it last year at the Little Film Festival in the small mountain town where I live, and had the very particular pleasure of having my 3-year-old daughter run up to me while I was giving my introduction, and then get to go sit in the grass and watch it with her. And to have made anything truly that I would so want my child to absorb the feeling of is a small miracle. And people can work whole long, beautiful careers and never make anything that they would say, I want my little girl and the precious garden of her mind to be influenced by what we made. And that is the case through and through. So I just could not be prouder and more grateful to have been a part of it.
I could not be prouder or more grateful to be part of this conversation. Eli, Allison, Des, I want to thank you all for your time, for this amazing conversation on the 25th anniversary of The Iron Giant. Thank you for changing cinema, and thank you for this great conversation.
Thank
Thank you so much. It's great to see everybody.